We are live. Excuse my mess here. It's normally messy, but I was doing some computer repair work today with my modem and Wi-Fi and all that good stuff. So I had to move some things around. So, welcome to the Health, Love, and Life Show. This is Coach Arnie, and this is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are here tonight, and we're going to have a little fun with a sometimes fun, but sometimes not so fun topic. There's my phone number and email. Please, I am open. It's funny how many people are so reluctant to pick up the phone. You know, one of my great mentors, his name is Joe Pesci. If you ever want somebody that can really help you increase sales in your business, get a hold of Joe Pesci. Joe and Don, phenomenal people. But it's all about picking up the phone. And I was talking to somebody today and how reluctant we are to pick that goddamn phone up. But there you go. There's my phone number. And there's Aaron. Blessed night as well. And Aaron, I hope you hang around for some fun stuff on relationships. But my point is, pick that phone up and give me a call. And if you got something that's a question, I don't bite. Well, at least not that hard. And let me help you out. Okay. We're still going hard on the Grand Canyon, getting things organized and just putting things together. And that's the thing. I mean, I just started. It's been a little over a month now that we've been putting this information out and putting things together, places, hotels, making arrangements. And it's a lot of work, but it's fun and I love it. So there's the information on that. It's Epic Adventure. epicadventure.com and .info, epicadventure.info. So look me up and but I can give you all that just with a phone call. So here we go. Tonight we're going to talk about relationships and quality of your life, of your relationships equals the quality of your life. And isn't that true? Think about it for a second. You know, I made a lot of notes today, but think about your life. I mean, most people, you know, you're either hanging out with your family, which includes if you're married, your spouse, your kids, your immediate family, maybe your brother, sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, nephews, nieces, all those folks. Things you can't change, at least not that quickly. In-laws, mom and dad, and then it kind of goes out to your good friends, maybe your workmates, teammates at work, managers, bosses, whatever you want to call them. And then maybe into your community or people in your community, schools, church. So as you go out there, those are relationships. And if you have great relationships as you start to move out, there's a good chance that you're having a pretty good life. Think about that for a second. That's your life. You know, I was talking to an entrepreneur today, just like myself. And, you know, you always know when you run into that 2%er because they just have there's a certain way about him. And he was a young guy, less than half my age. And he talked in a specific way, the way he was talking and at the same time doing his job, helped me out. And he was looking at my books and goes, "Oh, I've been reading those books." And I'm thinking, okay, click. This guy's a 2%er. But he had good skills. He had good connection skills, good communication skills. Then we talked about his wife and his family. He doesn't have any kids yet and what he's doing, his ideas. And I was encouraging him. And, you know, all I know is when he left my house, he probably went, well, he did. He goes, "Wow, that was great." It was almost like, I hate to say, I almost had to kick him out of my house because I had another call and then I had to get another call after that. Then I had to get ready for this show. So I think Thursday's my busiest day. And I didn't want to kick him out of my house. And but we had common interest. And we could communicate. Now, just because, so let's look at that little picture I drew for you with your immediate family, friends, work, church, community. The only place that you may not run into common interest is your close-knit family. Think about it for a second. Yeah. It's because not everybody in your family is going to be interested in what you're interested in. But as you move out, more and more people that you hang around, whether it's people you do hobbies with, church, I mean, you're all interested in church. You're interested in your job. You're interested in your friends you hang around because maybe you're a hunter, or maybe you go to yoga class, or you go to the weight room, or you jog, or you're cooking, and whatever, food, sports. There's a common interest. So you tend to connect with people that you have a common interest in. And where this gets really tough, and we're going to get to personal and intimate relationships here in a bit, but I didn't want to start there because that's brutal. And I need a lot more than 45 minutes to go there, because intimate relationships are brutal, or they can be, but they can also be off the charts if it's with the right person. Okay. But when you start right in that little tiny circle of your intimate relationship and go to your kids and then your in-laws and your brothers and sisters and all that stuff, the further out you go, the more you have in common. Believe it or not. Isn't that funny? Isn't that crazy? But if we improve those relationships, especially those close relationships, those intimate relationships, if we improve those, our life gets better. It's just a fact. Our life gets better. See, we are wired to create these I like to call them human collisions. We're wired for human contact. We're not wired to be alone. I mean, I talked to a lot of people. We've all been there. We've all been, where we had a weekend where our spouse was gone, or if we're single, we just said, I'm just going to chill out. I've got a project to work on, and we're just going to be by ourselves for the weekend. And you're like, man, that was so fun. I didn't have to worry about anybody. Didn't have to worry about being somewhere. Could eat what I wanted to eat. Didn't have to worry about going to dinner. And you're like going, wow, I could do this forever. No, you can't. No, you can't. We're wired to connect. We're wired for collisions. There's a story, and it really was sad because I heard this week, because I really liked the guy. I read about him. Read a great book, had a great story about him. Tony Hsieh with Zappos. And he used to talk about these human collisions and how when he took over at Zappos, and gosh, I think it was right around 2000, late 90s, 2000, they were kind of fledgling along. They had an idea, but they didn't have a great idea. And he kind of made it into a great idea. And one of the things that he tried to promote at Zappos was human collisions. He would literally make people walk in and out through the same door. He wanted these interactions constantly, human collisions all day long, because he knew the value of these relationships. And that's how he was able to build Zappos into a multi-billion-dollar company. But the sad part of that story is, here's this guy that was all about relationships. And I know he was building a great project in Vegas up until a couple of years ago, maybe even a year ago. And I don't think it worked. And so he was often somewhere in, I think, Connecticut, and then COVID hit. And couple of months ago, you know, how are they calling this? He died, but it's kind of like an unexplained death boy, smells like suicide. How can a guy like that commit suicide? Like a lot of people are committing suicide right now because they're not getting human collisions, especially young people. We need to be around people. We need relationships. This is nice right here, what you and I are doing. That's cute, but I don't feel you doing this. I can't give you a hug. Can't shake your hand. Felt so good today. And I don't want to be too politically incorrect here, but when this gentleman came to my house today, he had his, not a mask, but one of those other things, scarf, which is useless anyways. And I said, if you don't want to, you don't have to wear that. He goes, really? I go, yeah, really. He goes, oh, thanks. He took it down and was like, we were like best friends from the start. And when he left, I gave him a big handshake and we just, and I just met the guy. We had a collision. I wasn't fearful. I wanted his friendship. I worked at it. I complimented him. I chose to create that relationship. A lot of us don't do that today because we're afraid. It's the first time in history that us Americans have been afraid of our neighbors. Think about that for a minute. We've been afraid of our neighbors for the first time ever. And it's creating major problems. Suicides, way up. Depression, way up. So that's one of the reasons that I was kind of encouraged to talk about relationships tonight. Because it's a big deal. And it's causing a lot of other problems too. And most of these can be corrected with human interaction. Love. One of the saddest things for me, and then we're going to get positive, but is dealing with older people, because that's an area of expertise of mine. And many, 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 many older people. And I was talking to somebody yesterday. We had a discussion on this topic. And I said to him, I would love to know the statistics of how many older people have died from lack of love versus COVID. Bet it's more. I know for a fact, just one place that I've been to in the last year, there have been countless deaths. And I know for a fact that none of them were COVID. I just know the nurse, I know people, and I'm sharing it with you guys. Countless deaths. Why? Loneliness. Can't see your family. Love. Love's a big deal, guys. Love's a big deal. Whether you're in an intimate relationship or you're with your buddies, your friends, somebody you can share with and open up to and give and take, because that's really what relationships are. It's not about what you can get, it's what you can give. That's what makes a relationship. Because you and I have both been in relationships where someone's always trying to get. And at some point, that gets old. Because you're looking for value. And if we're looking for value, look, a great meme out there is that, one of the greatest leaders in history was Jesus Christ. Regardless of your religion, doesn't matter. And Jesus Christ was a servant to the people around him. To the point that he would even get on his knees and wash their feet. And I don't know about you guys, but back then, when you're walking around in sandals all day in the dirt, that's not a pretty sight. And if he's willing to kneel down and wash the people that work with him and wash their feet, what are you willing to do for your friends? That's a good question, isn't it? Because we all need to answer that at some point. We all do. And that's a hard question. But it's about bringing value to whoever you're around. If you bring value to your intimate relationships, there's a good chance that there's going to be a better relationship. Because remember, any relationship is not about what you can get. It's about what you can give. And the more you give, there's a better chance you get. But if your expectations are to get, you're probably not going to have a great relationship. And that's the tricky part of all this, because then it becomes transactional. And we don't want to be in transactional relationships. But I had a good friend, client, high-end guy, makes lots of money. We're talking millions every year. And he goes, Arnie, I don't know of any relationships that aren't transactional. I go, well, that's what we're working on, because there are. And any of you that have been in a relationship that is not transactional, I don't have to explain it to you. You know what I mean. It's special. It's different. And that's what we're all trying to achieve, whether it's an intimate relationship or with your kids, your friends, your colleagues at work, doesn't matter, your church. If it's not transactional, how many people do you know? There's always well, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. And you know it. When I know that, then that's when I get to make a choice. Well, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with that person. I love them, but doesn't mean, just because I love you doesn't mean I want to be in a relationship with you. Because many, many times I choose not to be transactional. But how many people do you know, or are you the kind of person, well, if he does that for me, then I've got to do something back for him? No, you don't. But you do if you're transactional. That's a tough way to live, because where does it end? Well, Mary brought me a cake. Oh, I'm at the store. I better buy Mary 2 cakes. And then Mary says, well, I better get Jenny 3 cakes and a bag of cookies. Where does it end? I don't know. Sometimes it ends with thanks. That was really nice of you. And then maybe sometime down the road when something's up and maybe you can go over there and do Mary a favor. I don't know. Maybe she leaves her water running and you go over there and turn it off. It's pretty nice. Take time to do that. I don't know. Maybe she left a package on her porch or something and you moved it or put it in your home until she got home and whatever. I don't know. But when it's genuine, when it's just something that's kind and it's real, then you don't get into this bidding war and this transactional horse trading friendship relationship, which it just doesn't end well. I don't know of any that do. If you do, please share. I'd love to find out. Those of you, because if my friend is right, and believe me, my friend is very smart. Not only does he have a lot of money, but he's very smart, and he's a public servant. So he's around a lot of people. What does that tell you? We got work to do is what it tells me. We got a lot of work to do. And so that's one of the things that I always work on with him, is to not create transactional relationships. And it's hard for him. It's hard for him. So there you go. We're going to move into tell you what we're going to do, because this next one's going to get a little more involved. So let's take a minute, and we're going to take a little break here, and we'll come right back, and we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of creating great relationships, and then we're going to get to intimate relationships and hopefully give you guys some value. All right, we are back with the Health, Love, and Life show. We're talking about creating great relationships, because relationships, the quality of your relationships equal the quality of your life. A couple of things I want to backtrack for a second here. One of those, as we were going from intimate to community, and as I said, they got more and more, the relationship got even better because you had more in common, except for one thing. At the very core of our relationships, the very core is you. You know, one of my favorite books that I share all the time is this one right here. Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. Great book, short. Look how little that is. Piece of cake. Take you half an hour to get through it. Powerful book. Because all our relations start with ourselves. And if you can't get along with this guy here, you're in trouble. You really are in trouble, because, as we start to look at the things that impact our relationships, things like your career, your marriage, being a parent, communication. Remember what I talked about today with that young man who came in my house? He had great communication skills. We connected. Your in-laws, your business, your extended family, all those things impact our relationships. And so we have to learn how to navigate through all of that in order to build great relationships. And some of us never do. And our lives suffer because of it. Another important aspect of quality relationships is our core values. What do you value? Like for me, trust, honesty, kindness, hard work. Those are things that I value. And if I'm around people that I can't trust, that don't work hard, that aren't kind, I struggle with that. And I have to make a decision. Is this a person that I want to have a relationship with? Now, what if that's somebody in your family? Well, you can't fire your family, but it doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of time with them. You don't. I hear that all the time from people. I'm going, why are you doing that to yourself? I don't care if they're your brother or your sister or even your mom and dad. Doesn't mean you don't love them. I'm just not going to spend that much time with you. That's all. I had to learn that. It was hard. But you have to be willing to do it, because see, I look at it this way. Remember I said you at the center of the core, you have to love yourself like your life depends on it. You got to love yourself unconditionally. Quit putting so much goddamn pressure on yourself. You have to love yourself unconditionally. Okay, you got to be able to look in the mirror and tell yourself why you love yourself. If you can't, you better work on it. Because to me, it comes down to, in my faith, Christian faith, if we master the first 2 commandments, we don't need the other 8. If you love God with all your heart and you love your neighbor like you love yourself, that's it. I don't need anything else. I don't. The problem is if you don't love yourself and you don't respect yourself, you're a mess. Because how do you love other people? I promise you, all your other relationships are transactional, and that's something that you need to look at. Because if your relationship with yourself is not very good, there's a good chance your other relationships aren't very good, and they're probably transactional. Meaning that if you're not getting things from that relationship, stuff, because you need it, because you're not getting it from you, then you're not going to be happy. Your expectations will be too high, and that never works. You're never going to be in a relationship of what I call pitch and catch. One day it's their turn to give and your turn to receive. Another day it's your turn to give and their turn. You know what I'm saying? You don't know when it is, but you're just constantly giving and taking. Instead of being, oh, Mary gave me a cake, I got to give her 2 cakes. That's just pitch. Instead of receiving it and embracing the gift, embracing the love, embracing the relationship. And then when it's your turn, when the time's right, you give. That takes work. So just focusing on those 2 commandments, pretty powerful stuff, guys. But it starts with loving yourself. Because God already loves you. That's a given. But it's not a given that you love yourself. So now let's look at another thing about relationships that are pretty amazing is that emotions are magnified in our relationships. Why do you think we get so angry, whether it's at home or at work? Because we really have 2 different, I like to call them 2 different mirrors. We have a reflection of ourselves at work, and we have a reflection of ourselves at home. But do you ever notice that when things happen in either of those cases, we get crazy? Because relationships magnify our emotions. They really do. And sometimes that comes through complacency. We're all guilty of it. Because if you think back, let's take your relationships at work. That first day of work, man, you were fired up. You were excited. Whether you had a cubicle or a desk or an office, you were organized. And, man, you couldn't wait to get to meet people at the lunchroom and happy hour or whatever you did. And you were Mr. or Mrs. relationship builder and getting to know their family and just loving on them like all get out. 6 months, a year later, hey, see you. How's it going? Have a great weekend. Talk to you later. Took it for granted. So if you go back and you were to do what you did at the beginning of that relationship at the end, meaning where you are now, there would be no end. There would be no end to that relationship. Kind of crazy, huh? Take that same thought and put it in your intimate relationships. Because we've all been there. We've all been there where it's a struggle. And if you think back to what you did at the beginning of that relationship, and you did it now or you did it at the end, there would be no end to the relationship. Because what got you into that relationship keep you in the relationship. That's fact. Problem is, pride and other emotions get in our way. And we think we deserve better than that. Maybe not. But if you want to be in that relationship, you have to do what gets you into that relationship. Think about it. Something did. I know that. Something did. That's fact. So let's look at some things here as we kind of move through these relationships and as we develop our work relationships, friend relationships, intimate relationships. Remember, at the end of the day, it's what we bring to the relationship that matters. What we bring to a relationship, if we're giving value. If you're in a relationship to get, as I said earlier, there's a good chance that relationship won't last. If you're in a relationship to give, there's a good chance it'll last. Now, this is important too. Remember what I said earlier, loving yourself. as Kamal says. If you have a hard time loving yourself, it's awful hard to bring love into a relationship because it becomes transactional. Even with kids, and when I bring this up to moms, sometimes they look at me like I'm nuts, but it's true. Because as much as moms love their kids, when the kid doesn't do what's expected of them, because there's conditions, it's amazing how moms get upset. Don't you love me? Why would you do that if you love me? See, that's not unconditional love, is it? That's love with expectations. We did a show a few weeks ago on aspirations versus expectations. When we love with expectations, it's hard. That's a hard relationship to keep going. But we do it anyways with our kids because we love them. We do. But they break our heart because our expectations are too high versus just love them. Now, you have to have boundaries, obviously. But you can't want it more than they do. But you'd be surprised what happens when you just love somebody. That's hard to do. It's hard to do, especially if they're hurting you. So, the quality of our life is measured by where we are and where we expect it to be. So take that relationship now. We're starting to notch down here. So that's a gap. So where you are today, where you expected to be today. Most of us, look, this is a big one for me. Where you are, where you expected to be. You know what's in the middle there? A gap. Now, my definition of happiness, progress. If you're making progress in your relationships, whether you're with a son or daughter, a parent, or your significant other, or your friends, or your work colleagues, if you're making progress, I promise you're happy. If you're not, that's like being stuck. You've heard of that term before, right? You're pissed off. You're bitter. You're angry. You want out of that thing. Now, if it's with your kids, you can't get out of that thing. Then you're depressed. So, happiness is determined by making progress in closing that gap. Okay, now I'm going to get into a quick little scenario here of what happens in relationships, whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship. I call them the 4 R's, where you have the first thing that happens is this person is doing things that just bother you. They're just kind of nagging you, little resistances, little things, and you're like, ugh, I wish they'd stop doing that. It's bugging me. So the first R is resistance. And they keep doing it. They keep poking you, keep poking the bear. And after a while, you start to resent that. I wish they'd stop doing that. Drive me nuts. Doggone it. I love them, but man, they're bugging me. But they don't. And then you start to reject them. They call on your phone. Oh, that's Jimmy. I don't want to talk to Jimmy. I don't even like Jimmy. So you start to reject him. And that goes on for a while. And then you know what? You don't even care anymore. Which I call repression. Like you could give or take him. There's not, the emotion is already gone. You're not angry. You're not sad. You're not happy. You're nothing. Jimmy calls. Oh, hey, Jimmy, what's up? Oh, nothing. What are you doing? Nothing. Okay, goodbye. That's what happens in our relationships. And it all starts with a little poke. And you know that my theory on how to get rid of all that, you got to sit down and talk. I call it an executive meeting, because a relationship is a business, whether it's an intimate one or a business one. And if you sat down at business every week and you had a team meeting, and I hear them all the time, I got clients, hey, we had a team meeting today. What'd you guys talk about? I don't know. Well, obviously you didn't talk about things that are going to help you get better. But if things are happening on your team that are bugging you and you don't bring them up, they're going to turn into resentment. But you bring them up. In my executive meetings, we talk about them. What happened? What'd you do? And then we give everybody a week to work on it, both sides. We're going to work on that. Now, if one side doesn't work on it and improving their little nagger little things, what are you going to think about them? Tell you what I think about them. I think they don't care. Okay? You can think whatever you want. I think they don't care. So we do it again. And I give them some more. They give me some more. And I work on mine. Hopefully they work on theirs. If they don't work on theirs again, I'm thinking, man, they really don't care. If that goes on for 3-4 weeks or longer, it might be time for me to move on from that job, from that relationship. Because why do you want to be in that relationship? What's the point? Where are you going with it? Now, if it's with your kids, you might have to work on something. If it's an intimate relationship, you got to know where you're going. You got to have some goals here, or it's transactional again, and you're probably in trouble. So the 4 R's are powerful. The 4 R's are powerful. And it might start with wiping your feet off before you come in the house, picking up your underwear. Okay? But at the end of the day, it could end up being 2 people that are just roommates. And that's not a good place to be. All because we didn't discuss little things that could have been corrected early on in a relationship. But see, to me, guys, creating great relationships is about courage and faith. It takes courage to sit down with somebody and tell them what the heck is going on. That's not easy. That takes a lot of courage. And if you're not willing to do that, the chances are your relationship's not going to work. And faith. What do you mean, Arnie? Faith? What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm talking faith, because guess what? You have no idea what they're going to do. That's why you're risking. Because risk is about things you cannot see and feel. Faith is things you cannot see and feel. You have to trust, which is why one of my core values is trust. You have to trust that other person is going to follow through. That's why a great relationship takes you to grab that heart, stick it in your hand, and stick it out here. And if you can't do that in a relationship, there's a good chance you won't have a great relationship, because there's a good chance that heart of yours is going to get kicked right out of your hand. So it takes courage, faith to create great relationships. Control and love don't mix. Control and love don't mix. And I'm going to scoot this along here because I want to finish with something really, really good. So if you're in survival mode, so if you're in a relationship, whether it's at work or whatever, and you're in survival mode, you're never going to have love. You're never going to have connection with that other person on your team. You're never going to have love with your spouse if you're always in survival mode. I'm gonna add something here. I call it the three U's for women, and the 3 S's, 3 C's for men. The 3 U's for women, which men need to be aware of when you're in a relationship with your significant other, is that if they feel unseen, if they don't feel, and I don't mean appreciate, I mean that you don't think they're there. That's a trigger. If if they don't feel understood, which is a big fear, not being understood, and if they don't feel safe, which is another big fear. So those three U's for women are big time triggers for any of you guys that are listening right now. They feel unseen. They're not there, which means you're taking them for granted. You know, like maybe doing the laundry. I'm guilty of this as much as anybody. Doing the laundry, maybe they cook meals for, I don't know, whatever your significant other does for you. And if you don't make them feel safe, that's a tough one, especially when the times are tough. You know, and I don't want to throw any more pressure on anybody else, but these are just things we have to work on, guys. And for women, let me go over what I call the 3 C's. And I'm putting this one just on you like I just put it on the guys. If you're criticizing, which means there's no appreciation, there's no admiration. And I know you want that too, but guys eat that stuff up like red meat. If they feel closed off, meaning that you're not letting them in on what's going on in your life, which women have a good way of doing. You close them off and you control them. Remember what I said earlier? Control and love do not mix. So trying to control your fella is a recipe for failure every time. Make you feel good. It might make you feel safe. Remember, that's why, guys, it's so important for you to make her feel safe, because if not, she's going to seek that out by trying to control you. There's so much more here that we need to get into, but we're not going to. But these are just some simple things. But I want to leave you with one last thought. When you're really in love with life, guys, all of you, when you're really in love with your life, because you've created this amazing network of great relationships, and so you're really in love with life, I want you to answer me this question. What's wrong with life at that point? And it's a rhetorical question because I'm going to give you the answer. Nothing. Nothing. That's how powerful relationships are. When you create a network of great relationships around you, you will create a great life, and there's going to be nothing wrong with your life. And I mean that. All right, guys, this has been the Health, Love, and Life Show. Don't forget, I will be here next week. If you're interested in learning more about the Grand Canyon and epic adventures and doing other cool things, give me a holler. Would love to talk to you about it. And don't forget to check out all the rest of Cece's great shows on the GoingSoloMedia.com. She's doing a wonderful job, and we appreciate the heck out of her. And again, thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week. I'm out of here.